2021 Roanoke County School Board work session to order. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linder?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rhodes?
Here.
Mr. Morales?
Yes, ma'am. All right. Item 2.0, closed session in accordance with Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A. Mr. London, you want to read us in?
Sure. I move that the Roanoke County School Board convene in closed session for the following: to discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption in 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss the investigation of a student matter pursuant to the scholastic record exemption at 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia, for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia, and for the discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body at 2.2-3711A29 of the Code of Virginia.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Linder?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Morales?
Yes, ma'am.
Next time we may need to make the rookie do that.
I know, yeah. Brent can read us out of closed session.
Hi, folks. We're still here at the Roanoke County Public Schools meeting. The work session is underway, but they've got a closed session going on right now. I know everybody's been patient and watching. Time now is about 5 o'clock. We are hoping that they're going to come to closed session very soon, so stay with us. The work session is coming. Don't go anywhere.
All right, thanks for your patience there. We had multiple things to discuss and closed. So 2.02, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. The Roanoke County School Board come out of closed session for the following: discuss ongoing personnel matters under investigation pursuant to the personnel exemption 2.23711A1 of the Code of Virginia, to discuss the investigation of a student matter pursuant to the Scholastic Record Exemption at 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia, for consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia, and for discussion of the award of public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers, and discussion of terms and scopes of such contract, where discussions in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body at 2.2-3711A29 of the Code of Virginia. Also move to certify that, the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the school board.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. All right, 2.03, action from closed session. Do believe we did not have any, so we'll move straight on to 3.01. We've got Mr. Bradshaw, Employee Extended Work Plan 2022, EWIP.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Human Resource Department every year submits the... Am I on?
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Every year, the Human Resource Department annually submits the Employee Extended Work Plan, better known as EWIP, for your review and approval. A couple eligibility reminders: that they must be eligible to retire from the Virginia retirement system, be at least 55 years of age, be a full-time employee for the last 10 continuous years, RCPS, completed the current contracted school year in full, participate, must be initiated by the employee, and that initiation is done in written format to the Human Resources Department by January 31st of each year. So this year would be January 31st of 2022. With that, if they're eligible, the school board contributes $2,500 towards their annual premium. And basically, the employee is paid at their daily rate at the time of retirement. We are not asking for any changes or any additions or anything new for the EWIP program for the 22-23 school year. So we're submitting it basically as we have in the past. And if approved, or if it's okay with you, we'd like to put this on a consent agenda unless somebody has any questions or things like that would like me to explain. I've also attached the entire policy if you'd like to review, but again, there are no changes to that policy either.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Bradshaw? All right, don't go anywhere. We'll jump right into additional high school coaching positions.
Yes, sir. A few months ago, the board asked staff to review some of the spring coaches, make recommendations. We did that back in September. Chuck, if you'll go ahead and flip to the next page. This was what I brought to you back in September. We basically compared our staff to the surrounding counties. The bottom are our recommendations that we made at that time. Chuck, if you'll flip the page one more time. By adding those recommendations, we talked about the total cost, as you can see on there, would be $48,500, and I'll break that down again in a minute. We asked the board if we could table this discussion for a few months until we could see if we could afford this. We've now had that time to do that, and we do feel like that we're going to be able to afford this addition if the board chooses to go this route. But this would be adding one softball assistant coach at each high school, one baseball assistant coach at all 5 high schools, a boys soccer, girls soccer, and then the lacrosse is adding one assistant, but we only have a lacrosse currently at 3 high schools. So that's the cost for 3 coaches. So the total for the 23 assistant coaches would be $48,500. We did talk about adding another track assistant. If you remember, currently we have 1 boys head, 1 girls head, 1 boys assistant, 1 girls assistant track coach. If they get to 50 total athletes with all the different events going on, we felt that that would be the time to basically then you would implement another assistant. Instead of just automatically giving an assistant, it would be based on the number of athletes for that program. So if we did that, that would be an assistant we would add at that appropriate time. We also mentioned there was 1 esports head coach that we needed for each of the high schools. That cost would be at a $10,000 total. So the total cost would be $58,500, and the Human Resources Department feels like we could handle that funding out of the department this year. We would obviously bring that back for the budget process for next school year.
Bradshaw?
Will that be?
We would like to put this on consent agenda if that's okay with you all, for the next board meeting.
Well, I'd say before we move it to consent, I mean, do we have general consensus that, you know, are we all comfortable adding, you know, the recommended additional coaches? I mean, this is a great time to discuss it.
I know you mentioned numbers. In terms of enrollment with Salem, Botetourt, the ones that you had, is there a big, I know some of our schools are smaller, obviously Glenver's smaller, Bird's bigger, those types of things. Is the enrollment in those schools larger than what our larger schools are?
The
for those
actual
positions?
athletic enrollment, or are we talking
Yes.
about the enrollment?
Well, enrollment of the whole
The
school
school-
and
Some of the
athletic.
schools are a little bit larger, yeah, but in general, we're about the exact same size because we're in the same divisions. Glenver is by far the smallest, of course. The rest of them are about the same size. You take an LB, and I think a Bird are about the same size. Mr. Greenway, correct me if I'm wrong, you know those numbers better than I do. So we really were trying to compare apples to apples. Now, the city schools are larger, so they did have some more coaches. But we felt like with the softball and baseball, when you really are comparing a team size, you're now comparing apples to apples again, because you only carry 15 to 16 athletes or whatever on a varsity team, and that's a lot for a baseball team. And then you're gonna have your JV teams, those kind of things. So we did try to compare as much apples to apples, if you will, that we could during this process.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any programs or any schools that don't have JV teams that aren't fielding JV teams? Did Glenver not have a JV soccer team last year?
That I'm not sure. I'm not aware of it. I do know in the past we have had some times we've had to collapse a JV team, but I'm not aware of that recently. Dr. Stegall may know that. I know it's back in my department now, but we just basically pay the coaches, and that would be an athletic directors that would, I could get that information. But again, obviously, if there wasn't a team, we wouldn't have that extra assistant because there wouldn't be a need for it. Because basically the way that if you recall, Mr. Linden, you have a head coach for the varsity team, and then the assistant, I'll use baseball for example, the assistant coach kind of was over the JV team. Well, now we're trying to add another assistant just so you have more where you're traveling, those kind of things when the teams are gone. So we would not need that third, of course, if there wasn't a JV team.
Very good.
I think we need to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you, Mr. Bradshaw. All right. 3.03, mid-year revenue increase and salary adjustments. Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Bradshaw, and Mrs. Huffman.
Yeah. Oh. Taking up too much time switching out. All right. So what we'd like to do if you recall at the last work session, we brought to you some very detailed information regarding our nutrition associates and our instructional assistants, and then all of the lower end paid employees on the pay plan. And Mr. Bradshaw and his team went through and made some adjustments to the pay plan and identified who would be affected if we made changes to the pay plan mid-year. This was all necessitated by the fact that we're still struggling to attract and retain our employees at that level because there is so much competition just in the general public of our employees leaving and going to other non-related types of businesses. So what I want to do today is review some revenue numbers of how I would like to propose we could pay for a change to the pay scale, and then review again what the cost of changing the pay scale would be, and I'll go over all that today. So I'll try and be very succinct. So first, we've got the state revenue update, and we went back, and if you recall, one of the biggest factors with our state revenue is the ADM, and we went ahead and typically would budget our ADM using grade progression. However, with the current year and the uncertainty surrounding COVID-19, we just used the state numbers when we budgeted. and we budgeted our revenues based on 13,087 students. We have seen higher numbers than that since we have been in school. And I went through and did some analysis of, and I did this back in September, and then I redid this today as of November close to compare what our November would look like if we projected that out as our ADM. And I would say we could safely increase our budget estimate of ADM to about 13,240. Because you can see in August we were at 13,218, 13,254, 13,267, and 13,271. So we are slightly trending higher up every month, getting a couple more students. If we project that out on the state revenue side, we will increase our ADM by 153 students for the budget purposes, and that would equate to an increase in our overall budget of $845,871. So that is a lot of money to leave on the table when we do expect that our numbers won't go back down. We think they will stay steady, if not raise a little bit. So any questions on the state revenue review? So then with the sales tax, our budgeted number, we used the VDOE number, which was 16.5 million. And we did this because there is an inverse relationship with the sales tax and our SOQ. The state built in a no-loss funding factor that kind of affected all of this as well. We really had no idea what we were going to see. You know, a year ago when we were starting to budget out our sales tax, we had no idea what kind of spending we were going to see from people. And the state only estimated about a 4.7% growth. So we really just didn't know what else to do other than stay safe and stay with the VDOE number. In looking at the collections we have made all year long, we are significantly higher. We are looking at, if we stay on target with where we are, maybe 7.31% higher than last year's revenue. So we're going to be higher than our budget. By 2.4 million is what we're looking at right now. This is in line with what the House Appropriation Committee presented on November 16th, where they're seeing that consumers are really still spending a lot of money on goods. They're not necessarily buying the services, but they're buying goods. They're having things delivered to their house left and right. I think Amazon probably has never been busier than they are now, right? The state realized a 15.4% growth for June to October of 2021, so that's pretty significant, and that rolled down into our coffers slightly. And they are seeing estimates and planning on about a 7.6% growth. So when I ran our numbers, we had a 7.31%, which is kind of in line. So in reality, I'm thinking we may see a $2.4 million overage surplus in our sales tax. I would be comfortable recommending increasing our sales tax by $1 million right now, knowing that the other 1.4 million would roll into our major amount of capital at the end of the year if we do realize that amount. So any questions on that?
This is all current year that you're
Correct.
comfortable.
So this is just a really quick review of the changes to the lower end of the pay plan that we are hoping to implement. Mr. Bradshaw and his team, as I mentioned earlier, went through and, you know, we do have a pay plan that's based on decision-based model. Everyone was put on the pay plan purposefully. We just went through a pay study, 2 years ago? Correct. And unfortunately, the year that we had the study, we didn't have the money. COVID hit, and we couldn't implement it that year, so we had to wait and implement it the year after. But we we have taken a look at, because of the factors that we have run into attracting and retaining these employees at these lower levels, doing what we can to increase these lower positions while addressing as much as possible that compression that's going to occur when you increase one person and not the person above them. Because we can't flat out just increase the whole scale. We don't have the money for that. But we do need to do something that is fair and equitable, but maintains the integrity of this pay plan that we have implemented and adopted. And so basically we're going to eliminate the A11 grade, and everyone on that will move to an A13 grade. Same with the A12, that will be eliminated, and everyone will go to an A13. The instructional assistants that are on an A13 will move to a B21 and move up 4 steps. Behavior coaches that are on a B21 will move to a B22 and up 4 steps. Then your attendance clerks, administrative assistants, and your warehouse foreman, who is currently on a B21, will move up 4 steps and stay on a B21. And your nutritional managers at the schools will move from a B22 to a B23. So those, I tried to color code them so that you could see in the visual and on the side. So when we costed this out, and I've got the 3 different columns on here, and I've got it in like groups of rows by the grade. And in the first set of columns is our general fund. The second set of columns is our grant fund, and the last set is our nutrition fund. I do show the current year cost, so that's about a half of a year. And then I also wanted to make sure we were considering the impact, because we're talking about an ongoing change. So we still need to consider the impact to next year's budget. We still need to be able to afford it. This will have to be one of the first things that we build into our budget next year, right? Because this is ongoing. So in the general fund, we would need, and just to give you a quick update, as you know, I always like to run the numbers for the most recent numbers possible, because payroll changes. We are hiring and I don't want to say terminating, but people are leaving us almost daily, and we're hiring daily. And so this is always a moving target. If I run this today, it may look different than if we ran it tomorrow. Payroll is always very difficult to nail down. So the yellow shows that's highlighted that row. That is the total that we're going to build this budget on. It is the November 15th payroll. The row below that shows what I provided to you at the last work session. So you can see we had, actually in all of the cases, slight savings, I guess, in the general fund and the nutrition fund, but then we had one extra hire in one of the grants. So that cost a little bit of money in the grant fund, and that was the special ed IDEA grant. And they were very well aware of that IA, and that was purposeful. So the cost in the current year for the general fund is $963,660. That is a number that we would need to cover through additional revenue, which is why I discussed where our additional revenue would come from. So the first 2 slides that I reviewed would cover this amount. The grant fund, if you look in the 2022 column, they have $265,392 spread across all of our grants, that instead of increasing their grant, they would just shift their funds. In any given year, we have last year's grant open and the current year grant open, and they have the wherewithal to be able to shift some of that money. And all of the grants are able to do that and absorb that cost. And then plan for it, go forward. Then when we get to the nutrition fund, their cost in the current year if we put this in place, would be $294,504. And if you recall last year, or last work session, we're coming, when I presented the audit in November, they have, let me get, here we go. This kind of wraps it all up. In the nutrition fund, they have a carryover of $355,867 that they can use that. That was just from operations of 2021, and they can use that for the current year. We also analyzed what their pre-COVID 3-year carryover was, and they were ranging just over $600,000. So we think that they'll be able to sustain this increase themselves. Now, when it comes to budget time, when we start talking about adding insurance like we did with the bus drivers, that may have to be a transfer that we support the nutrition fund in order to help retain them. But as far as this pay plan, they should be able to sustain this year and going forward. So just as a wrap up on this balancing page, I have each fund kind of self-contained to explain. In the general fund, we are looking to add, and everything that we're looking to do is just the 2022 year. The 2023 year is literally in here just for comparison purposes. And it looks like I may have a, no, never mind. Okay. So in the general fund for the current year, we are looking to ask to increase our budget by $1.8 million. This would cover the $963,660 needed to implement the new pay plan. It would also provide us $882,000 for other needs that have arisen during the school year for operations, which could be used in other manners that have been previously discussed. And like with the coaches, we could surprise Jim. We could cover that for you using this pot of money as well. Then again, with the grant fund, they would absorb their own increases, and the nutrition fund, we would use the carryover. So what I would project and like to do is recommend at the next school board meeting, either via consent agenda or through an action agenda item, whichever is your preference, we would request that you approve the pay plan, which you do have a copy of the pay plan and the changes that Mr. Bradshaw's team put in place. And we would ask that you approve an increase to the general fund budget by the $1.8 million and appropriating that for the payroll and other items as needed. So then, after that, the next step would be to take this to the Board of Supervisors, because as you know, our budget has to be approved by them. I'm already going to the Board of Supervisors on the 14th to review our carryover from the audit and get the ordinance for that. And so I would like to also ask them to approve an ordinance for this amount if that is the board's wishes. And then on January 11th, they would have the second reading of that, and then January 15th, we could go ahead and pay out. That would be the first pay we could pay out at the new rates. One other thing that I'll be having to speak with them about, and that's my next presentation, is the additional COVID-19 fundings. I'll have to take that to the Board of Supervisors as well. And I'm hoping to do that between the December 14th and January 11th, but that all is really kind of up to the VDOE. So that's what I have for the pay rate. Do you have any questions?
The 1.8 million seems pretty conservative based on the numbers that you showed earlier. Is that, you think that's accurate?
I think so. I think it's conservative. But I would not want to add more.
And you're confident about the sales tax, right?
As confident as I can be in December 1st, having run it from July through November. And looking at the House Appropriation Committee, they're seeing the same increases. So that was kind of, when I read their report and saw that they are expecting a 7.6% increase, that kind of provided validation to me that what I'm looking at is reasonable.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that there's not much wiggle room that we have if it doesn't come in, or it does.
Well, I'm not projecting we add, because the 7.31% would be 2.4 million.
We're only
And-
using about 40% of that.
And I'm only asking to use $1 million of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have built in
You
a
have
decent
got
little
that.
cushion for us, so
I do.
I think that's why those numbers are pretty confident with being able to absorb that increase. Yeah. I mean, this is no different than
No, I
the
think we
discussion
kinda
we
have
had,
to,
I mean, earlier this evening, I mean, trying to keep our employees above,
we wanna keep
Can I ask one clarifying question for the good of the board and anybody listening? These increases we're talking about, which, can you clarify whether or not that's an increase in a starting wage for any new hires, or are we looking at, this reflective of a increase for all current employees in those positions?
This would cover all current employees and all new hires.
would shift the whole scale.
We're not shifting the whole scale, we're just truncating it.
Well,
So
but
we're
for all
chopping off the bottom
For all
part.
the grades, all the way.
Everybody currently in those positions would see an increase. That's what I'm making sure
Right.
we're clear on that.
Anyone who's colored on here
In those, yeah.
would see an increase.
Would you anticipate any feedback from people that were just hand selecting certain levels of employees again, like we've seen recently?
or
And-
backlash.
Yeah, backlash.
It's
whatever
always a
you wanna
risk. I mean, I
call it.
think one thing, just from my perspective, I appreciate about this is, I mean, if you look at the pay scale, I mean, everybody on those, is not this line, but not the other one. It's, everybody in that whole group is being looked at, so.
Correct. Mr. Bradshaw's team is very cognizant of the equity within the scales themselves. We were lessoned very well from the consultant who put this plan in place for us. And so that was definitely, and I'm speaking for you, do you want to come up and?
No, you're correct. I'll jump right here, because as long as there's a microphone, you're okay. The biggest thing with the pay plan is the integrity. So if we can hold the integrity of the pay plan, and by doing the shifts that we're doing, it's gonna allow us to move that minimum wage from the 12.46 to the 15.04 for our IAs, which now gets them above the substitute rate, all that kind of stuff. But if you do certain shifts, you had to move everybody within that class, like the A1s. We just had to move them all. Because again, you can't handpick, if you will, to keep the integrity of a scale. And by shifting some of those, it forced our hands on the others, because you couldn't move, let's say, a nutrition associate, you couldn't give them a higher pay scale than you would a nutrition manager. So it forced us in certain areas to bump the others, but without doing an entire scale shift for everybody across the board, we feel like this is the best way to keep the integrity of the pay plan and get our minimum wage employees up the best we can, with the means that we have.
Let's just explain it, Will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Hudson? I know this all this kind of started a couple of months ago when we did, when we were having trouble hiring IAs, so we significantly increased the sub pay for IAs, which now people, our sub IAs were making more than our contracted employees, and that gave us an opportunity to look at, nutritional workers as well. Like I said, similar to the conversation we had, I mean, we're keeping up with other districts. Okay. All right, thank you. Well, don't go anywhere. 3.04 COVID-19 funding summary, our favorite topic.
Do you guys want to weigh in? Would you like to see this item go on as an action item for next week or on consent?
Does anyone have a preference?
I think we go, probably ought to do action, but I'd be okay with consent, but I think action makes it a little more public.
Right, that, and of course,
Transparency.
if there is more discussion, that gives you
Right.
opportunity to have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
sorry. Yes, your favorite topic. And I've thought about this so much, I can't even think of how to do my slideshow now. So, I feel like every time we meet, I get to bring to you new opportunities for COVID funding. I'm bringing you new opportunities for COVID funding. So we have an opportunity to apply for a grant for a bus driver recruitment and retention. This ESSER 2 comes from the December pot of money, and it's limited to $50,000 for school divisions underneath, I think, 10,000 in students, and we qualify for up to $100,000 for this grant. Now, it's not a give me that we're going to get it all, but this is what we're going to apply for. There were a couple of different things that on the item that were allowable, but there were things like adding insurance, and we've already done that. Adding hours, and we've already done that. Increasing pay rates, and we've kind of already done that. So really the most incentivizing thing we saw on the list was the bonuses. And they just say you can't exceed 5,000, and I don't think having 155 drivers, we would exceed that. And in fact, what we're looking at is throwing it all into bonuses for each of our bus drivers. This would end up being $599.31 bonus because then we have to pay the FICA out of the same amount. Now, I think there was confusion when all of the employees received their bonuses at the last time we provided premium pay, and the $599.31 is the gross amount, and so after the required IRS taxes of the 35.4% are taken out, it would end up being $387.15 in their pockets. So I did want to clarify that.
While we're talking about the bus drivers, this kind of ancillary to that, but are we still doing well with retainment and recruitment since we're talking about?
The best we've done since I've been in this position. We're down, I think, 5 drivers right now, 5 positions. So that's tremendous. That's great compared to where we were 12, 14, 16 last year.
The only reason I ask is I'm seeing other localities with
Yes, sir.
issues.
Canceling routes, yeah.
Right.
I think,
So hopefully that's because we're,
well, and the school board's decision to restore those benefits, I mean, I think
Sure.
we've reaped the benefits of that, right?
yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off, but that was kind of where we were at.
So I assume you've already, that's due on Friday, you're probably already working on this application?
We have it ready to submit as soon as you
Okay.
say yeah.
Do we have to spend these funds and hope that we get the money back? Or
We will know, but we won't spend anything until the VDOE says how much we are allowed.
And technically what you're saying is we've spent it, if I understood where we've, or were those requirements to get this grant? You were saying we've already done some of the pay, we've added the hours,
No, those were other options of ways that school divisions could use
You
the
could do that.
funds. But since we've already done all of that, this is what we felt would behoove our bus drivers the best.
Gotcha. So we give each one this bonus. Nice,
Yep.
nice.
So hopefully we'll get the maximum amount and we can
Do you
provide.
need anything from us here for that? I mean,
Well, just general consensus that we can apply for it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So then, our favorite ARPA ESSER 3, the big $9 million one that had all the stakeholder input that we received. So we did get a superintendent's memo already that increased our allotment by $6,923.38. This is typical for the VDOE. In fact, all of our other grants, they will see slight increases and decreases throughout the life of the grant in their appropriation from VDOE. We went ahead and looked at the list of what we were already putting funds towards, and it looked like the ELL program could probably use additional tutoring, and so that's what we allocated that little bit to. But as a reminder, we can switch the funds as the school board desires in the future.
So you have the latitude to change as you need to.
We could, yes. And then the last grant is just the CDC grant related to the employee screening. This would allow us to hire a testing division coordinator, a nurse, and a mitigation specialist, in addition to paying for supplies. Have calculated $132,247.06 that we would get from this grant. This grant is very short term. It literally goes from December 1st through June 30th. And we would only use this grant if we are required to test our employees and screen them.
Which is still pending because, OSHA issued their, new standard emergency that cannot go into effect until, Virginia's Department of, Labor and Industry, regulatory committee under that, they have to issue, currently in the federal courts, the Fifth Circuit of Appeals has issued a stay, which apparently affects, the whole country, even if you're not in the Fifth Circuit. So this is all up still in the air. So this is just, applying for the funds in case it goes through so that the cost of the testing, is covered.
So could this, because we've already hired, 5 new nurses, or we've given the.
This would be specific, those are the positions that we would have to hire if we're required to do that testing program, for anybody who's not vaccinated. So we would only use these funds and be able to use those funds if we're actually doing that testing program. And again, we're not gonna do the testing program.
Unless we have to.
There you go.
And so that's related, you're saying that's directly related to this
Yes, sir.
federal mandate? I got you.
Right.
And when is this grant due?
Dr. Segal has already sent in the MOU
Okay.
related to it, and so, I think it's all kind of pending because we don't know if we're gonna have to do it.
Right. Okay.
We'll go ahead and get it submitted just in case, so that we're not caught, unprepared if it goes through.
Which is why I just wanted to bring it up here.
Gotcha.
Because then if we need to take it to the Board of Supervisors for that next step, depending on the timing of things.
Which brings up the question, or begs the question, I'm not even sure if this is right, maybe you tell me, we'll talk about it later. But right now, that's the second strike against that federal mandate, so,
I think there's two, the way I understand it, there are two obstacles that have to be overcome before this goes into effect. One is at the federal court level, the Fifth Circuit, and I forget which states that covers technically, but our council has said that affects the entire country. They've issued a stay against that federal order, okay, so that's got to be resolved at the federal court level. The other thing that has to be resolved is just because OSHA issued the reg, in order for that to be implemented, it has to go through the state, corresponding agency to actually tell us, what we need to do. So, and that hasn't happened yet.
no timeline. So we're good, January 4th right now is off the table until we get further.
Until those two things are resolved.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where it stands as of December 1st.
Oh, this is gonna be hard. So the last slide that I had, gosh, and I'm gonna have to get up and stand because I can't see from back here. I'm sorry, Jeff.
We may have to start making these age appropriate too. Or either I need thicker, more,
Large print?
yes.
Trifocals.
Yeah.
This is just a quick list of everything right now. You've seen this list before. The items in the yellow are the 3 that I talked about today that are the additional funding that we're seeking now. The items in red are the ones that we brought to you previously and we have already applied for. They are in status. The HVAC is at the second level at BDOE for being approved, and as soon as that's approved, we'll get it to the Board of Supervisors and roll that along so that Mr. Lowe's team can start using that fund money. The Each are three, the next three on here, the summer programs, the learning programs, and the unfinished learning. I spoke with someone at VDOE, and with those grants, if you recall, they were not allocations, they were kind of wish list type. We give them a list of everything we want to use the money for. If every school division comes less than the amount of money that they have, they'll pretty much give everybody what they want. If all the school divisions ask for more than the money that VDOE has to hand out, they're gonna have to start chopping away at different programs. And so they said that process will take through December, and they hope to get back to us by January-ish, in January, on whether we get any of those funds that we've asked for. The little McKinney-Vento has already been approved, and the SEL has been submitted. So that's kind of the status of where we are with our grants. And again, this is not only am I putting it in board docs, but we also have a website that we are keeping up with this as well. So that's it for me. If you don't have questions, I'll move on.
Just a reminder, McKinney-Vento is the federal law that serves homeless students, which is on here, so.
And that's based on student population or?
The actual number of homeless students that we have,
Homeless
they're
students.
covering that, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
It's gonna be bad if our work session's shorter than our closed session. It will be.
Oh, we've had short work sessions in the past. All right, item 3.05, Mr. Lowe's gonna give us potential cost for Northside High School Stadium turf.
Thank you. Yes, sir. At the last work session, the board requested I come up with a cost estimate for new turf at Northside High School that would be equivalent to the other high school fields that we have in the county. Today, I received that estimate from Field Turf, which is the company who's installed our other three fields and replaced Bogle Field as well. The total project cost that they submitted was $1,267,791 and some change. I will let you know there are some value engineered things in that price that we can engineer out. But I can also tell you that the pricing has increased significantly since the Glenver and William Byrd project. The earthwork has almost doubled. Engineering cost has doubled. And we think that this is mostly because of just the way the economy has ran over the last 2 years. And so they're making up for steady prices that they had all those years. And even the turf itself has went up per square foot. So the price kind of surprised me just in the fact that it was higher than we initially thought it would be based off the Glenver and Byrd jobs. We did the track and the fields at Glenver and Byrd for a little over 1.3.
That's what I thought,
Yep.
somewhere close to that.
And we're
Yes,
not
sir.
even looking at the track. And
No,
we're
sir.
not I mean,
And there's some things in here that we don't have to do, such as the curb. It's already, for some reason they included it in their budget, but it's already there. So I found about a $60,000 savings in that. And then there's also a few other things I found in there that we can adjust. But the major cost is the earthwork. They're anticipating a high cost to remove and excavate dirt and haul it out of there.
Is there another company that, I know they're the ones that we've used in the past, probably retained on the county for procurement, but is there somebody else we can?
There are other companies out there, probably be lower cost. I would say there's probably only 2 other companies out there that have the national reputation that maybe this company has. I know Liberty used a different company, and Heritage used a different company for all their fields. And we could definitely put that out to bid if you were to move forward with wanting to do the field out there. But this would be this will be your not to exceed number for a budget on this job.
University?
Yes, sir, Liberty.
Heritage.
And
High
Heritage,
school,
yeah,
high
the high school, yeah. I think is it Sprint Turf, I believe, did 9 different fields at Liberty University, and they did a bunch of different fields. I think at Heritage, they did baseball, softball, they did everything down there as well. But like, Field Turf has just been a good partner with us on our fields, and we've had great success with them, so that's why we stretched them out to do this, cost estimate.
Maybe they think we've had too much success.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth looking at another price. Or if you wanna move on.
And I was just presenting this information as information.
Does procurement require other bids?
No, they have a national contract that we
They
can
have
ride.
national contract with them?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How many of our other fields are we sharing the expense getting from the county, $25,000? Is it just Bogle, or is it Bogle and Bird?
Just Bogle right now. Yes, sir, that's the only one, but I believe we're getting ready, I believe the county is getting ready to commit to contributing to Glenver and Williamsburg.
What makes you believe that?
We've had,
Don't you have an MOU?
yes, we have an MOU that, I don't know when it starts though.
I think it starts within the next budget.
Within the
year,
next budget year.
$75,000 they're gonna give us.
For those 3 fields total.
Okay, well, and it poses the question, as these costs are going up, I mean, you know, look, whether you wanna blame it on inflation or whatever it is, you know, these prices aren't gonna come down. I mean,
It's the
you know.
same for all construction, we keep saying that.
What's the
We
current
keep having
condition
that
of the field?
discussion, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're gonna
Really
come
good
down
condition.
even if
It-
inflation.
currently
Not
it's
an
a-
immediate
No,
need.
sir.
Yeah.
It's a Bermuda field, and I think a lot of people have said it's probably the nicest grass field in Southwest Virginia.
So the drainage is good?
Yes,
No
sir.
issues with the kids playing on it?
No, sir.
So this would purely be from a standpoint of we just want a turf field versus a natural grass field? I mean, if we're gonna spend $1 million,
I
I
think
just wanna
you're
make
I
correct
sure
in
understand
that
what you're saying.
assessment, Mr. Hudson.
That's where I wanna get at, is if we're gonna
Because-
spend over $1 million of taxpayer money, I wanna make sure that
We do not have issues at that field like we did at Bird or Glenver.
Well, we also, tell me again, for the benefit of Mr. Hudson, I mean,
Sir?
because we spent a lot of money out there on the track, the curbing, you know,
Yes.
the Bermuda, we're covering the, maintenance on the Bermuda, other than the lines and everything, right? I mean, the
Correct,
coach still does
$30,000 a
that.
year,
So-
yes.
That's
So-
a good point, Jason. The one thing you have to look at on these fields, and the reason I believe a lot of localities are going to them, is we've figured out, we've gotten Mr. Lowe to give us cost estimates for maintenance on these fields. And I don't recall the exact numbers, but for instance, 30,000, I don't think, it was 35,000.
30 at Northside,
Yeah,
Bermuda.
so that's the cost a year keeping the grass. You get the turf, you're gonna provide 30,000 a year.
how
Towards
long does the,
replacement.
how long does the turf typically last?
Bogle lasted 13, but typically you wanna budget for 10 to 11 years.
Okay. And then with the construction cost, obviously, is there gonna be, it should be less to re-turf. essentially.
Absolutely. Bogle, and for instance, to replace Bogle 2 years ago was $470,000.
And is there any maintenance to that turf year to year?
Besides grooming it, not really. The only other maintenance would be if you have a low spot, or maybe if a hash mark comes up, and you basically get a caulking gun with Gorilla Glue and fix it.
That's the, I mean, that's where, it's not just to spend that million, I get, that's upfront, but you're gonna continue to do this year
What's-
over year, you're gonna spend that money.
What's the usage at the north side field compared, I mean, obviously, you know, when we talk about Bird, when we talk about Glenver, even Bogle, I mean, we have multiple sports playing on it, we have rec club playing on it. Does the football field at Northside, is that as high traffic as other stadiums?
I could not tell you that. I could find out. I seriously doubt it, because it is a grass field, and if I was managing that field, I would probably limit use to my
Okay.
soccer team and my football teams, and probably limit a rec use, because the more you do use that Bermuda field, it is going to tear it up, and it is going to become a little bit less safe and unplayable. That's the advantage of where turf is. You can use it 24/7, and you can use it immediately after a rain event. So there's, you know, that's the advantage of turf. The Bermuda, as long as you're using it wisely, which they don't practice on that field, so it's not getting that use. So they're really just getting game time on that field. I don't know if I don't believe Parks and Rec is using the field on the weekends. I don't believe
6 times this year.
I'm sorry,
They used it 6 times.
6 times.
We're not really hurting for good fields on the North County though, are we? As like a
They
vet.
have an extra, yeah, we didn't have we don't have any. That is our field for everything. That's our gym class field. But I think they do, they maybe have one.
You know, I mean, my thoughts to piggyback on, Mr. Hudson, when we're talking about spending taxpayer money, I'm just concerned about the optics when we're talking about working with the Board of Supervisors to come up with some additional funding for BCAT, Cundiff, Glen Cove, and then we're going out and spending, let's say $1.3 million on artificial turf. Is this the best time to do it? That's all I'm saying.
And just to throw out there, as far as that community goes, Northside Middle is actually the 4th school after BCAT, so you're really trying to put some things away from that.
I agree with you 100%, and Dr. Nicely here gave me a tour of some of the facilities, and looking at Northside Middle, Glen Cove, there are some infrastructure issues and things that need to be addressed from an educational standpoint, so it may not be the best time. And then also looking at just from $30,000 a year on average into $1.2 million takes a little time to really catch up with the money there.
And think about that too, we're, even if we go turf, we're setting aside $25,000 a year for replacement. So, that's only $5,000 less than what we're spending on the maintenance of the Bermuda. If we're comparing, I mean.
I agree with you. If the field is in really good shape, I agree with you.
I love the idea of Northside getting the turf field, but I can't rationalize 1.3 million at this point in time with the other projects that we have going. I mean, I look back 22 years ago, Northside got the state-of-the-art gym, and to this day, we've built Hidden Valley since then. We've remodeled Bird twice now since then. They don't have a gym as nice as Northside's. We've done Cave Spring, and we couldn't raise the roof there in their gym. I mean, I know Coach Gruce would love to have a gym like we do at Northside for putting more fans in there.
Can I correct you on one issue?
No, I looked at the plaque last night as I
think you said that just to rip you.
Over and over.
And we've redone Glenburn.
Oh, it's 3 times if you count the locker rooms.
Holy
that we
cow.
spent over
And,
there.
I mean, I know the
Jeez
Northside
Louise.
community would like that, but I mean, we've got, if we tried to keep everybody in the same gymnasium, we couldn't afford to do
If
that.
I may add this, I think this is actually a good example of the difference between being equal and being equitable. I mean, it's not the same, but, I think what you guys are saying is the north side field is equitable. It's actually a great playing surface. It's actually, I think, I'm told, better to play on in terms of, playability. So it's not like, it's not like north side is being shortchanged.
What I would like to see, I know one of the issues the coaches have over there is having to line it and stripe it, and Bermuda grows so quickly in the
Sure.
summertime. You go to Bird, you go to those other fields and you look down on the field and it's beautiful because it's turf and the stripes are there. I'd like to see us try to find money so that the coaches did not have to, I know they don't have to maintain it and cut the grass, but I'd like to also see us try to find funds to paint it when they need it painted, once a week.
I think it's being painted, once every 2 weeks now, or
Yeah, and when they cut it 6 times in those
6
2
times
weeks.
in that window, yes, sir.
I know one of their opening games didn't look so great because it hadn't been painted.
Right.
I think that's a
And it's
very,
time
I
consuming.
think it's a
I
great
think
idea.
that's a very
Yeah,
good
I mean, it's
concession
honestly
from
should
a
be-
million, so, yeah.
Absolutely.
It should be painted, during football season, I feel like it should be painted every Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
I mean, or before every home game, I mean.
You can get that done.
Sure, we'll figure something out. But budget session's coming up soon.
I can't imagine
I can
it
add
would be that
another line
expensive
item
for
into the
6 or
budget.
7 football games.
Not 1.2 million.
It couldn't be that.
Well, it's not right for them to have to do that when nobody else has to.
Does Parks and Rec do the lining for them, or do they hire someone? They hire
They
someone?
do it themselves.
Do it themselves, okay.
Yeah. And
So you're
he
gonna
makes at
talk
least
Parks and
2,000
Rec?
a year to do
Yeah,
that.
we'll do some exploration and see what's out there, so that they don't have to do it anymore. We'll get a cost and see what we're looking at.
What are you doing in your extra time?
Those machines are pretty easy to use, right?
Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, Chris. Do you want to move on to some project updates?
Sure, just want to give you a couple updates here, let you know what we're working on. Let's talk about the baseball fields first and the soccer field at Hidden Valley Middle. They're finished at Glenver Baseball with all the aeration, the soil amendments, things like that. We do still have another contractor who's going to come in and install that drainage in the right field, so that where that water pocket is. What do you call it? I lost the term I was thinking of. But a spring. There's a spring out there in right field, so the drain is going to end up keeping that a lot drier out there. So he should be out there in the next month or so to take care of that. I lost my update. The sodding is done at north side, and tomorrow they're applying and grading the infield material, and that will leave freshening up the mound and the plate areas, and it'll be complete. Then he's going to run over to Hidden Valley High School soccer and top dress and cover the field with the tarps that for the winter to help the grass grow. They've already aerated, overseeded, and added all the soil amendments to William Byrd and Hidden Valley baseball grass surfaces, and he's going to get to their infields this month. All they're doing there is doing the same thing at Northside. They're bringing in infield mix, 20-some tons of infield mix, and grading it out and leveling it up to the lips around the outfield and infield.
So you're saying they've already graded the infield?
That's what he's going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. And it's not the infield itself; it's the dirt. It's the infield mix, the sandy loam mix. And he'll be bringing that in the next couple of weeks, and then laser grading that. And what it does, it comes up level to the grass. So
Well, it doesn't need to come up, it needs to come down.
Yeah, well, the dirt needs to come up to where the grass is, because you got the lips on the grass.
No.
All right, I will go back.
Whatever, as
I'll
long as y'all are
double check.
good, I just want to make sure it gets done this
Yes,
month. 'Cause
it's
we've been
gonna be
talking
done
about
right.
it for 3 or 4 months.
I think our north side folks are happy with the work he did out there. I talked to Kelly last week, and he seemed to be really happy with what was done out there. So, like I said, he'll be finishing up out there tomorrow, next day. All right, some other projects just that you're aware of. Northside Middle School HVAC rooftop replacements are complete. We should have a final on that by the end of this week. We've also replaced 3 water source heat pumps at Fort Lewis. That work is complete. We've also, I'm just going through some of these projects. We finished the playgrounds at Back Creek and Burlington. Those playgrounds are complete. Those were both $100,000 playgrounds that came out of CMP. We've also finished installing some water fountains at Glen Cove and Herman L. Horn. Northside High School is currently beginning construction on their new HVAC system that will accommodate a E-Hall and the guidance area where we were having some issues with moisture in those areas. So that work will be ongoing from December until May, just so we're aware. That's a long project. We've completed an ADA asphalt path at Clearbrook. At Hidden Valley Middle School, water line to the football field was complete. So was the well. HVAC, Back Creek, the BAS upgrade was complete. And let's see here, with the generator here at Central has been complete. And we've also done some Central HVAC replacement here as well. That is all complete. We have, I should let you know that we have 3 boilers at Mountain View, Herman L. Horn, and Oak Grove. And if you remember, all 3 of those schools were renovated back in 2000 to 2003 or 4. All 3 boilers at Oak Grove went out. We have a temporary there now, and first on the list to be replaced is Oak Grove with the $2.6 million that we're getting in the ESSER funds. We also have only 1 boiler running at Mountain View right now. So we're getting a temporary run out there. It seems like all these boilers at these 3 schools have started to go down right at the 20-year mark. So those 3 schools we're planning on replacing this spring as soon as the funds become available, just so you're aware. And the temporary boilers are working well to make sure the students are going to stay warm through the winter. And we're covering that cost out of maintenance. I'm trying to think. We also we're going to be replacing 27 HVAC units at Fort Lewis this spring, and we're also replacing rooftop units at William Byrd Middle this spring and summer. So those are on the docket. But that's just a few of the projects we're working on right now.
How about the tennis courts? Those
Tennis
aren't
courts,
done
good
either.
que- yeah. He has not started. as I told you before, he's not gonna start the Bird, the Glenver, Cave Spring ones until he gets the lights in, and the lights, he's supposed to start installing the lights this month, December, probably finish it in January. That he has still not gotten his asphalt guy out to north side, even though they've already trenched in the electric.
We realize the next 2 months are.
That's right. Yeah, so he thinks that he may not get the asphalt down until February or March for Northside tennis courts. So we may have to do some adjusting on the schedule there because he's just struggling to get the asphalt out there. And
Is it product or is
Yeah,
it
it shouldn't-
supply?
it
Is it? I
Shouldn't
mean,
be product.
It's not product.
It's
Or labor?
No,
They shut it down.
it's, their plant is up and down,
Uh-huh.
and I think that's based a little bit on labor, but it's also that plant's workload. They're just backed up.
If you need people, I mean, because this shouldn't take that long.
So if we're not gonna get north side potentially poured until February, I mean, we also got some weather, I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no way we'll have the other three
But the
ready
other
in
three are
town for
separate, 'cause
tennis.
those aren't being asphalted. Those are just getting a
Resurface kind
A
of?
resurface,
Okay,
yes,
all
sir, and the lighting. And so he'll be working on the lighting while he's waiting for, the problem with those three is the paint material's still not available yet. The lead time on that has been.
I do know the paint is an issue.
Yes, paint is a major
But this
issue
other
right now,
stuff should have already, we
including,
should be making progress. We were talking about that 6 months ago.
yep, and there's still an issue getting parking line paint, the yellow parking line paint, there's still an issue getting that, even for us in-house.
I thought they were bringing the asphalt from Adams Construction, which is a mile away.
It is, and I don't want to, yeah, it is from Adams.
Is
And
it, is it the contractor?
It's the contractor. It's the contractor sub, it's Adams. Adams just, Adams will not schedule it yet.
I'm lost here. I know this is government, but I don't understand why we hadn't got these. We knew they were going to be done for these kids for spring, and we've been talking about it for 6 months,
We have,
and we're still nowhere. Especially at Northside where they, don't have.
So we're ready to pour at north side, correct?
yes, we
All
are.
right. And the subcontractor's ready to pour. It's Adams
Adams
that
is the issue
not-
right now.
oh, that
His,
is-
his,
that is
sub-
so- That's so busy that they cannot supply us the asphalt.
that's what I'm being told.
Okay.
For a tennis court.
Yes.
How does my guy get asphalt?
I don't know, Mr. Greenway.
We can't bribe in the.
Well, I ain't bribing. I'm just, he gives me a price. This is frustrating.
Oh.
I don't know how we can't go to fix this. Do we have somebody on retainer at the county or we pull the contract? Come on.
Were there any deadlines built into the contract? I mean,
This season, but for the season to start.
okay,
But there's no liquidated damages in
Okay.
this. We very rarely ever put liquidated damages in our contracts because it drives the prices up.
gotcha.
So, I
Right
mean,
now, this VHSL seasons are about 48 weeks a year. Hidden Valley tennis players can go out there and practice all the time, and
We've got to have a resolution. Can you get us something by next week?
I would try.
Ask Adams to come in here and talk to us or something.
Okay.
Tell us that they can't give us product. Come on. There's got to be something there.
Understood.
it is just a little embarrassing that it's taken as long as it has.
It's frustrating. I know.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Mr. Lowe?
No, not for Mr. Lowe. I've got one question I would like to ask after that, before we adjourn.
I'll give you a quick update on William Byrd.
Okay.
All the furniture is just about at the school in pods that we've brought in from all the other schools. Drywall is pretty well complete in E, but they're still waiting on doors, windows, and tiles, so we cannot move furniture or kids into that Phase E until it's there. And we're still looking at the end of December for all that equipment. And then hopefully they can get it installed early January and we can move the kids into that Phase E in mid-January to late January. They have started working on the infill area where the wrestling room and cheer room is going. They've got all their underground work done and started building their foundation in that space. They're looking to move to the weight room area probably in January as well. So we'll have to make a quick switch on the weight room, moving the weight room around. And then they're going to start moving into phase F and D, I think.
So the only question I have is, will it still, I guess with the end of December, will we still be able to phase that part of the building that we're gonna use?
Probably mid-January. Yeah, we probably need to give them about 3 weeks to get all the doors and windows installed and the floor tile. Yes, sir.
I believe they did say when I was out there last, they could go ahead and get the students moved even though some of your casework's not in yet. your
That's right.
cabinets.
Casework's still out too, but we can move the kids in once we have the doors.
Okay.
And they can do the windows around the kids' schedule, so that the windows aren't as big of an issue. The doors is the biggest issue because of security. So that's what's holding us up from moving the kids back into those classrooms.
When's the next construction meeting? Is it next Wednesday?
Yes, sir. Wednesday.
Okay.
Next Wednesday.
Can you
Yes, sir.
send me an invite, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. It's come along, it's beautiful, I mean, it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
we
frustrating.
walked through and we met with Tammy about bulkheads and things like that. And if you get to walk through, you'll see that they've already started painting over there in Phase E, so that's starting to come together as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I think we're down through the agenda.
All right, well, I've got one question that I'd like to ask. Going to these basketball games, and I don't know if there's any other indoor sports right now, I don't know if indoor track or whatever. Can we get rid of these masks for these kids and these coaches?
I can find
I
out
bet
what
I
the,
bet there were less than 5% of everybody. And we can't ask these principals to go around and police getting these people to wear masks. It's just kind of ludicrous. They're spitting, sweating on each other, but we got to wear a mask on the bench.
yeah.
Not saying
I can
it's,
find out what the requirements are. I don't know the answer to that, but I can find out.
I mean,
Requirements from,
Whatever prevailing public health order we have, I don't know the answer to that, so I'd have to do some research.
went to Jefferson Forest, same thing. Nobody, not a soul, you know, but the kids.
So the specific question is whether or not the students and coaches on their bench have to
Could
wear
they
them.
be exempt during their games, during practice? I mean, I'm sure I'm giving fodder for, you know, getting crushed here, but, I mean, it's about half ridiculous.
If you can find that out, that'd be awesome.
I will.
Thank you.
it looked like, I mean, from pictures that I saw from state volleyball tournaments or regional competitions that were in the Roanoke Times, maybe 50% of spectators had masks on indoors, maybe.
Is the question about spectators or players and coaches on the bench?
Well, I can tell you, the spectators aren't wearing them.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, to require kids and the coaches, I mean, how do you contact, you know, this question Dave asked last night, how do you contact Trace when all that's going on?
Yeah, it's pretty impossible.
I don't understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Nicely. Appreciate everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks.